And welcome everybody to the Brody File. We are glad you could join us this week. And by the way, let me just say straight off, from a wardrobe perspective, no tie this week. I'm too stressed out. This campaign has made me way too stressed out, so I had to go with a more casual look. It relaxes me, believe me. All right, look what we have here, folks. I mean, for months and months, Donald Trump has been exclaiming, "The evangelicals, they love me and I love them." Well, that love affair paved his way to victory in the all-important South Carolina primary. 72% of the voters in South Carolina Saturday night were evangelical, and Trump won 33% of them. Ted Cruz, 27%. Rubio took 22% of that evangelical vote. So look, let's not kid ourselves here. Donald Trump is on his way to the GOP nomination, and if he wins it, it's going to be because of evangelicals, plain and simple. Here is some of that rousing victory speech.
Mexico is killing us, absolutely. We'll do the wall. Don't worry, we're going to do the wall. We're going to do the wall, and by the way, who's going to pay for the wall? Mexico's going to pay for the wall.
All right, so let's step back for a moment and ponder this. Donald Trump won the evangelical vote in South Carolina. I want to repeat that again. Take a moment. Donald Trump won the evangelical vote in South Carolina. Ted Cruz, the evangelical candidate, did not. Marco Rubio, who speaks so eloquently about God, didn't either. Now look, both these men are solid men. They love Jesus, but it is Trump who has done the best job of channeling the anger of the GOP electorate. And guess what? Evangelicals are upset with the Republican Party too. They have felt like cheap political pawns for years. They have constantly been used by the GOP to get out and vote, and then they have nothing to show for it. So with Trump, many of these evangelicals feel like they finally found this politically incorrect mouthpiece to channel their inner frustration. Now look, folks, is he the most righteous man to carry the torch? No. Is he the most transparent and authentic one? Well, clearly they believe so. We interviewed Trump in South Carolina just a couple days before the South Carolina primary, and here is some of that interview. Tell me about your core, because you say a lot of good stuff out there, but people want to make sure that you are going to be able to deliver.
I'm a Christian, I'm Protestant, I'm Presbyterian. I think that Christianity, frankly, I think the Christians in our country are not treated properly. I think all of your problems that I've seen it, the bill that was passed during the Lyndon Johnson era is horrible, because I see churches where they're afraid to be outspoken because they don't want to lose their tax-exempt status. And I realize that that's one of the problems. I know people want to endorse me and they're afraid to endorse anybody because they don't want to get political. So essentially they've taken a lot of the power away from the church. I want to give power back to the church because the church has to have more power. Christians are really, Christianity is really being chopped. Little by little it's being taken away. I want people on Christmas to go into stores and see signs that say Merry Christmas again. And it's going to happen with me. It's going to happen with me. It's not going to happen with anybody else.
So you just invoked Lyndon Johnson there in 1952, the tax-exempt status. So just so I understand, you're basically saying that you want pastors to be more involved and speak more boldly from the pulpit like they did in Revolutionary War times. Is that it?
I want pastors to be able to speak. They're afraid to speak now. They're afraid to get involved in politics because of tax-exempt status. And I want pastors to be able to speak. I want them to be able to, like any other person can speak. I mean, if you think of it, they can't do as much as other people that are walking down the street. I want pastors and ministers to be able to get up and speak on behalf of Christianity. And they're afraid to do it right now because they don't want to lose their tax-exempt status. We will take care of that.
So I want to clear a few things up on Planned Parenthood. Ted Cruz is hitting you hard on this, and you have said a couple different things. You've talked about how you are not for funding of Planned Parenthood because of the abortions that they do, but at the same time, you've talked about how, in essence, they do some nice things. And so, as a President Trump, if a bill came to your desk that would defund Planned Parenthood, you would support that? You would sign that?
Yes, because as long as they do the abortion, I am not for funding Planned Parenthood.
Even
but
if
they do cervical cancer work. They do a lot of good things for women. But as long as they're involved with the abortion, as you know, they're involved. Now, they say it's 3% of their work. Some people say it's 10%. Some people say it's 8%. I hear all different percentages, but it doesn't matter. As long as they're involved with abortion, as far as I'm concerned, forget it. But we have to remember, and I wouldn't fund them, regardless. But they do other good work. Okay, you look at cervical cancer. I've had women tell me they do some excellent work. So I think you have to also put that into account. But I would defund Planned Parenthood because of their view and the fact that they work on abortion.
Okay, because there are other groups beyond Planned Parenthood that do that fine work as well, so that could be farmed out and done.
That's right, but they do a big job. There are a lot of women that are taken care of by Planned Parenthood, so we have to remember that. But I am for defunding Planned Parenthood as long as they're involved with abortion. Let
me ask you a little bit about this. This is making its way in evangelical circles, so to speak. The head of the Log Cabin Republicans, the gay Republican group, says that Donald Trump will be the most pro-gay Republican presidential candidate that we have out there. I want to get your take on what he said.
Well, I haven't heard it. I mean, I have not heard that at all.
All right, well, what's your reaction to that? Because there are evangelicals out there that want to be able to trust you on traditional marriage and other issues.
I think they can trust me. They can trust me on traditional marriage. And, you know, frankly, it should have been state. I was very much in favor of having the court rule that it goes to states and let the states decide. And that was a shocking decision for you and for me and for a lot of other people. But I was very much in favor of letting the states decide. And that's the way it looked like it was going. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, came this very massive decision, and they took it away. But I was always in favor of states' rights, states deciding many issues.
That is Donald Trump here on the Brody File. All right, now for the Democrats. Hillary is back. It wasn't a blowout, but at this point, a win is a win is a win. And that's what you got in Nevada.
In the days ahead, we will propose new ways for more Americans to get involved in national service and give back to our communities, because every one of us has a role to play in building the future we want. Washington is never going to have all the answers, but for every problem we face, somewhere, someone in America is solving it.
Look, she's going to do well in South Carolina too, but Bernie Sanders isn't going anywhere. He's going to need to win some Midwestern states, obviously, like Colorado, Minnesota, Wisconsin. And providing he does that, don't expect to see this race settled into April or May. All right, coming next, back to the Republicans. What does Ted Cruz do now? And what about Marco Rubio? Is he poised to take on Trump and win? Some answers when we come back. And welcome back, everybody, to the Brody File. We're glad you're with us. And by the way, that you haven't switched to something like the Golden Girls or something out there in cable TV universe. So look, we all know that Trump's big success so far in the campaign. We all know that he's been successful. But what about his two main challengers, Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz? Well, look, for Rubio, he has a path to the nomination. I don't think there's any question about that. Jeb Bush now out of the race, so the GOP establishment bigwigs are all going to start to coalesce around him. Plus, the media is going to begin to craft the storyline that Rubio is going to try to be the giant slayer against Trump. Rubio's problem is that he needs that one-on-one matchup with Trump, and he needs it quickly. But Cruz is, of course, in the way. Now, speaking of the Texas senator, you got to feel for this guy. I mean, look, he's got a stellar record of defending Judeo-Christian principles. He's a born-again believer. He's got plenty of money. He's thrown the liberal policy kitchen sink at Donald Trump. And by the way, Cruz is as smart as they come. And then along comes South Carolina. It's a treasure trove of evangelical voters. So you would think this state is picture perfect for him, and yet Trump beats him among evangelical voters. It's fascinating. Of course, that figure we showed at the top of the show, 33 to 27%. And look, folks, that simply cannot happen if you're Ted Cruz. And for that reason alone, it just was not a good night for him at all. Now, what I'm picking up from evangelical voters who are on the fence is that some just either don't trust Cruz based on what happened in Iowa, and also, by the way, what Trump and Rubio have been saying about his character. But also, they don't necessarily like the way Cruz comes across. They feel he's a bit too slick, a little too cute by half, and I got to be honest with you, those are the perceptions out there in the evangelical world, and it obviously hurt him in South Carolina. And that was part of the conversation we had with Cruz in the Palmetto State, and this interview that we did with Cruz was done before the primary down there, but it does give you a good set and a mindset, especially about what Cruz has to do during this election. Have a look. What do you want to say to some folks that are starting to question, in essence, your character, your Christian character. How much is that hurtful to you? What do you want to say to those folks?
Well, listen, David, it is the nature of politics that unfortunately politics becomes often mudslinging and personal attacks. And the better you do, the nastier the attacks go, and they try to impugn your character. My response, I don't respond in kind. Scripture tells us that when you repay unkindness with kindness, it's like piling hot coals on their head.
You're proud of Jesus, you'll let people know about it. But to folks that want to say, oh goodness, he's talking Jesus in the public square, and they start to have a conniption, if you will, if you know what I mean, what do you tell those folks that you want on board that are concerned about, this Jesus talk that we hear so much about, coming especially from you?
Well, sure. Listen, I am a Christian, and the Word says if you are ashamed of Jesus, he will be ashamed of you. I don't intend to have that conversation with my Maker. It is an integral part of who I am, my faith. Now, at the same time, I'm not running to be pastor-in-chief. It is not the calling of a political leader to deliver the salvation message. That is the calling of us as believers. It is the calling of a pastor. But it's a different role to be a political leader. So I certainly do not hide my faith. But my responsibility as a leader, and if I'm president, my responsibility as president, is to defend the constitutional rights of every American, to keep every American safe. One of the great things about the First Amendment is it protects religious liberty of everybody. It protects the religious liberty of Christians, of Jews, of Muslims, of atheists. At town halls, I periodically get people who ask, I'm an atheist, why should I support you? Now listen, as a believer, I hope that atheist will encounter the forgiving love of Jesus Christ. But as a president, I intend to be president of everybody, president of every faith, but also president of Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Libertarians. And the beauty is protecting the Bill of Rights. Protects every right. You look at the history of our country. We were founded by people who were fleeing religious oppression. They didn't want government forcing one particular religious view down their throat. Rather, we were founded by people who wanted to come to this land where we could seek out and worship God Almighty.
Ted Cruz on the Brody File. All right, when we come back, how much should the faith of a candidate matter? A new book on that very topic addresses this head on. We're back in a moment with an interview with the author. And welcome back to the Brody File, everybody. All right, here's a question for you. Do you like McDonald's or Burger King? All right, no, that's not the question. Sorry, my stomach, it got the best of me. I apologize. The question is this. How much is a presidential candidate's faith important, and should we demand religious clarity from them? That is the subject of the new book written by Stephen Mansfield. It's actually called Ask the Question, Why We Must Demand Religious Clarity from Our Presidential Candidates. He stopped by our Brody File studios recently, and our John Jessup had a chance to speak to him about this very important subject. Have a look.
You have a new book out called Ask the Question. Can you explain the purpose and the title of the book?
Yeah, the purpose of my book is called Ask the Question, Why We Must Demand Religious Clarity from Our Presidential Candidates. And this is not me forcing a religious discussion on anyone. It's me saying, look, if a candidate's going to put their faith in play, they're going to mention it during an election. Let's not let it just stay at the God bless America phrase at the end of a speech, or just a video of them watching, going to church with a Bible in their hand. Let's ask them what they really believe. We've had some real reversals. I mean, even President Obama reversed himself on some things in office and said he did it because of his religion. Hillary Clinton has reversed herself on some major policies that came out of her husband's administration, and has reversed herself, she says, on the basis of religion. Same things happened on the other side of the aisle.
Can we go through the candidates one by one, if you will, and tell us the pluses and the minuses, where they may have executed well and where there may have been some blunders?
Sure. You want
Let's start with the smaller side, which is the Democratic side. Let's start with Bernie Sanders and the Hillary Clinton.
Bernie Sanders, raised Jewish and went to Hebrew schools, read Hebrew fluently, he tells us. Says he believes in God, but in a non-traditional sense. And then his very next phrase is, I believe in God in the sense that we're all one and we're all responsible to each other. So I think not Orthodox as a Jew, not Orthodox in any other strict religion, just really believes in God in sort of a spirit maybe abiding in the people. And that's his confidence. So I wouldn't say that he's probably the one outlier in this election, and that he doesn't have a defined religious faith.
Hillary Clinton?
Hillary Clinton, very much a social gospel Methodist. Now I know the word Methodist can mean anything from evangelical all the way to extreme left wing. She's definitely on the left side of the spectrum. She believes in the social message of Methodism, and less perhaps in the sort of evangelical, Wesley preaching revival side of Methodism. But this has been a commitment since she was young. It's guided her life, and so sometimes the folks on the right get a little irritated with me when I say she's a faith-based politician, but she absolutely is.
I was just going to say that you assert that she's, much to the surprise of most Americans, among the most faith-based politicians of her generation.
There's just no question about it. I mean, this woman has been on the forefront of American politics for decades. She has been deeply faith-based, sometimes troubled, sometimes welcoming people who were in the occult and New Age and what have you into the White House in very embarrassing episodes. But this is a woman who is a committed, theologically liberal, social justice-oriented Methodist. No question about it. And if you read her Senate speeches, you look at what she tried to do as First Lady, this has been a strong motive in what she's attempted to do. So, different faith from evangelicals on the Republican side, but nevertheless faith-based.
So Ted Cruz, an evangelical Christian, whose father is a pastor.
Yes. Ted Cruz, I think, is very much rooted in conservative Baptist soil. He attends First Baptist Houston. His father's a pastor, has been, preaches now. In fact, in his sort of celebration speech at Iowa, he said, "Thank you for letting my father preach in your churches," which we've not heard from a presidential candidate much before. So I think he's a good, solid, evangelical Southern Baptist man. He has paid a price in some of his decisions. He's countered some things in Texas that were kind of assaults on the gospel and assaults on the church, and so I think he's genuine. Now that doesn't make him the perfect candidate necessarily, but I'm saying as far as his faith, this is something that has deep roots in his life, and that he's actually lived out. So I think he's solid, he's sure, and we don't have to wonder if this is just some theological clothing he put on just to run for president.
The billionaire who surprised most of us, Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. I think it's obvious that religion is not Donald Trump's native language. He's a Presbyterian. I think he's like my father, who's passed away now, God and country kind of patriot. Loves God in a general sense, loves his country, not deeply taught theologically, born again. I can't judge from this distance. But clearly he's not very comfortable in dealing with religion, and his appeals to evangelicals were sometimes a little clumsy or silly. Hey, my mom gave me a Bible and she even put my address in it. You almost want to laugh. I tweeted that Joseph Stalin got a Bible from his mother. It didn't necessarily say. So I'm not anti-Trump, but I'm saying theologically light. But who knows? Maybe this process will deepen him. But he's at least trying to speak evangelical.
That is Stephen Mansfield and the well-dressed John Jessup here on the Brody File. All right, coming next, it's pop-political time. Producer Amber C. Strong mixes faith, politics, entertainment when we come back. And welcome back to the Brody File. I love this next segment of the show. The only thing better would be an all-you-can-eat Las Vegas buffet. And by the way, we have done that. Instead, we actually have the next best thing to a buffet. Brody File producer Amber C. Strong with a smorgasbord, get it? Of faith, politics, entertainment. It's the segment we call Pop-Political.
Thanks, David. So we are here at the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery to celebrate the unveiling of a great American president. No, not him, but him. You're looking at a painting of House of Cards president Frank Underwood. That painting now hangs here at the Smithsonian. Of course, President Underwood is played by actor Kevin Spacey on the hit Netflix show House of Cards. The Brody File was there for the unveiling, mostly in search of food, but actual visitors were greeted with this video, blurring the lines between fiction and reality.
I suppose I should be pleased that I'm finally going to be hung in our nation's attic. Of course, if they knew what was in my basement, they wouldn't hang me so close to Lincoln. I'd end up next to Booth instead.
Spacey remained in character for the entire unveiling. By the way, Season 4 of House of Cards premieres March 4th on Netflix, and that painting will remain here at the Smithsonian until October. Hillary Clinton visited the set of the TV show Scandal. One of the show's stars, Scott Foley, uploaded this selfie during her visit. Scandal star Kerry Washington is a huge Hillary supporter. She tweeted this picture during her visit. "A good friend came by the set today, and I'm proud to say I'm with her." You know that one topic on social media that just won't go away? Lately, that topic seems to be Kanye West. He's had a series of Twitter feuds, he went on an epic rant backstage at Saturday Night Live, and who could forget asking Mark Zuckerberg for $1 billion? Some people in the music industry are starting to wonder if something is really wrong with West. Rhymefest, the co-author of Kanye's hit song Jesus Walks, tweeted this: "My brother needs help in the form of counseling, spiritual and mental." In the past, Christian rapper Lecrae has said when he hears Kanye's music, he hears, quote, "a broken person." Recently, Kirk Franklin collaborated with West, and he caught a lot of backlash for it. Franklin defended his decision by saying this: "To a lot of my Christian family, I'm sorry he's not good enough, Christian enough, or running at your pace. And as I read some of your comments, neither am I. That won't stop me from running." So the question remains, should we care? And what should our response be as fellow humans, and furthermore, as Christians? Tweet me your answers at Amber C. Strong and at The Brody File.
You're so hip, you're so cool, you're swanky. Back in a moment with a look at the political journey ahead. And welcome back to The Brody File. Look, before we leave you this week, we want to take a look at what's coming up in this wacky presidential race. So the biggest day yet is just around the corner. It's Super Tuesday, and we want to list off some of those states that are going to vote on that day. Here we go. Alabama. Are you writing this down? Alabama, Arkansas, Colorado, Georgia, Massachusetts, Minnesota. Hey, Al Franken, yo, shout out. Oklahoma, Texas, Vermont, Virginia. That's only 9, by the way, but the Republicans will also hold a primary in Tennessee and a caucus in Alaska. The Democrats actually have a caucus in American Samoa as well. Is that like a Girl Scout cookie? That's not a Girl Scout. That is somewhere in the South Pacific. We don't ask the Brody File to GPS it. We have actually no clue where it is. Anyhow, Donald Trump poised to do very well in many of the southern states. The key state, though, is going to be Texas. Can Trump beat Ted Cruz in his home state? If he does, then folks, that literally could be the end of the Cruz campaign. We're going to see how it plays out. Now, as for the Democrats, look for Bernie Sanders to do well in Massachusetts, Vermont, Minnesota, Colorado, while Hillary sweeps through the South. As for the Brody File, we are sweeping on out of here. Until next time, everybody, God bless. Have a great week.